Assalamu alaikum, program Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ghulam Nabi Morai. Viewers, we discuss in depth, analyze in depth the topic or a subject from various perspectives. As usual, a writer and an intellectual, Syed Mohibullah Shah Sahib is with us. Shah Sahib, Assalamu alaikum. Shah Sahib, today's topic is how was the evolution of civilization in the human history?
Very fundamental question. How did civilizations evolve in human history? How did we reach where we are today? And when did humans start to move from a state of nature into a civilized way of living? If we look back, in the state of nature, human beings lived on planet Earth thousands of years ago. They lived on planet Earth in an environment where the land mass of Earth was shared with animals, and it was all forests and jungle. So they lived. How could they survive in this atmosphere? There was no separate place for human beings or separate place for animals. And they were living, there was no clear space for houses or homes or buildings. They were living in forests, in jungles. So they were, as always, there are two basic things in every human being. These are the basic things. Then the other things come afterwards when we get into the civilized life. First is, how do you secure yourself? Safety and security of life, and then food in order to continue to live. So safety and security and some food to eat in order to survive and live. These are two fundamental necessities of every human being at that time also. Now they were living in the same planet, in the earth, where animals, the lions and tigers and elephants and foxes and jackals and buffaloes and goats and others and birds, they were also sharing with them, and they were in the jungle. So they over hundreds of years, emerging from this, as you said, how did it evolve? Emerging from this scenario, and then to secure safety, security, and food, it took millennium, thousands of years for human beings. Well, generally, there are many stages. There is a Stone Age, there is a Bronze Age, there is a Iron Age. The historians have divided the past history, prehistoric, into various stages roughly. So then in trying to do two things, safety, security, and to find food, they were generally what is called, they became hunter-gatherers, hunting for food and gathering food. So they were families or groups, whatever. They would live together because of safety, because they were sharing the same earth or area with the animals, very predatory, who would eat human beings, lions or tigers and others. And they were nomads. They would move in search of food. And now where to find what is called a food? There was no such thing as a crop. This was all wild jungle. There were all kinds of plants. There were all kinds of grasses. how do you find this one is good for you to eat? And this one is a poisonous thing to eat. This was a wild grass, and they were trees. Which fruit can be dangerous for you? Which fruit can be delicious for you? It took humans centuries in order to identify certain fruits or certain grasses that are good for food. Now, we take these things granted, we take this for granted, but let us ask our viewers to think in their minds. We eat wheat. From where did wheat come? Where did wheat come from or rice come from? This was a grass thousands of years ago, like many other grasses. By trying and eating over the centuries some grass or some kernel, the dano, the kernel, and many others had, over hundreds of years, human beings then could identify, don't eat this grass which is poisonous, or this grass which is useless, or this particular kernel or a fruit which is not good. This particular thing is tasty, it is good, and it is safe. This is how, out of thousands of plants, wild growth in jungle, by experimentation, by trying, it's a difficult, as you said, evolution of civilization from a state of nature. These are the processes which human beings went through. When they were living as nomads, they were moving from one place to other in search for food, and they were trying to living in groups so that they can protect themselves from predatory animals. This is how what we eat today was discovered. For instance, wheat. Wheat was discovered. Discovery means it was growing there, forgotten for how long? Like wild grass, like many others. But by trial and error over centuries, they identified this particular grass with this kernel is something which tastes good, it is safe, and it gives us some energy. Now, wheat was discovered, identified first time about 10 to 12,000 years ago. And it was in Mesopotamian civilization. Between Dajla and Frat, the Euphrates and Tigris River, the area in between the two was the most fertile. And wheat was discovered in other areas also later. But first time, about 10 to 12,000 years ago, wheat was discovered in Mesopotamian civilization. Where was rice discovered? Again, same search. Human beings looking for, this search was going on everywhere. Wherever human beings had evolved and reached from higher level of thinking, trying to work. Rice was discovered in China for the first time, again, about 10,000 years ago. Where was cotton discovered? We used cotton in order to clothe over there. Human beings in those days used to move naked. Men, women, children, naked life. How to cover yourselves? Same thing. From where do you find? From millions of plants that grow in wilderness. Which one can give you that particular thing from which you can make a fabric to cover yourself? And it will be interesting for people to know that we live in an area which takes a pride in being one of the first areas in human history where cotton was identified as something from which human beings can make cloth to cover their nakedness. And that area is where we live today, Indus Valley civilization, and the simultaneous at the same time in the Nile region in Sudan. These are the two areas where cotton was identified out of millions of other plants as something where from this plant you can't make a cloth, from this one you cannot, thousands of others that were growing from here. So this experimentation, trial and error, this is how humans came to develop areas, things which were needed in order to move from the jungle life to a civilized life. So wheat was discovered in Mesopotamia, rice was first discovered in China, cotton was discovered here in Indus Valley civilization and in Nile region in Sudan. Then we come about, there are other things. Maybe we don't have a time, so we can, these are interesting things, you see. We take these things granted. Who decided that a week will consist of 7 days? Who decided that 1 hour will have 60 minutes? Who decided that 1 minute will have 60 seconds? Who decided that night and day will have 12 hours each and it will be 24-hour day? Who decided? When was it decided? These are the interesting things.
No, but go ahead.
Of evolution.
After this break,
of
yes,
civilization.
we can continue. Let's take a break. Welcome back. Shah Sahab, you are giving us the details about the evolution of civilization. Now, since you were giving some specific details, please continue with that.
Okay, now we are trying to explain to our viewers that many things that we take for granted, human beings, it took quite some time, centuries, and a certain level of knowledge and expertise in order to do these things for the first time. Now, these are routine and we do them without recognizing, but trying to do it in the first time to move from state of nature to a more developed, more civilized state. So we were talking about, first we talked about what different elements of food discovered. We talked about when and where was wheat discovered, rice discovered, cotton discovered. Now, so human beings now knew that this is what we should eat, this grass is not good. And this is a particular plant, if we grow, it will give us a fabric so that we can cover our nakedness, the cotton. Okay. Now, the other thing we were talking about is, how was time divided? There's a day and there's a night, and now we all observe there's a 7 o'clock, there's 8 o'clock, there's a 9 o'clock, there's 1 minute and 30 seconds, 1 minute and 40 seconds. Who decided? When was it decided? For the first time, it must have taken knowledge in order to be able to divide. Otherwise, this is a huge jungle. How do day and night comes? When should, how do sun and the stars and the moon, the movement? This is from, by understanding, trying to know this knowledge of astronomy, of then mathematics, the time in terms of dividing the time, that there is something called 1 hour. This was again discovered, or first time discovered in Again, Mesopotamian civilization in the Babylon era. That there's a particular thing, and they were very fond of this. So everything in six was somehow in their culture, in their calculation systems. So in Mesopotamian civilization, in the Babylon era, the human beings, the brilliant, the mathematicians, the astronomers, and the knowledge people, they discovered, okay, this is the way to divide the time so that people can then work according to certain plan. So they decided 8,000 years ago, okay, that there will be 1 hour which will have 60 minutes and 1 minute will have 60 seconds. This was discovered 7,000 years ago by human beings, by using their brain, astronomy, mathematics, calculations. Same time that there is a light in the day and there's a darkness in the night. How is this circular? What is the movement of sun and the moon and these stars? How to calculate how long the day and how long the day, and not just today or tomorrow, but all the time for years and years and centuries. This was discovered in Egypt.
But even I think 50, 60 years or 100 years back, there were people who used to tell us the time during night time through the stars.
Stars.
That now the star position is this, so time is this.
Okay. For the first time, this knowledge came 7,000 or 8,000 years ago. Time dividing was done by Mesopotamian in Babylon civilization, and the day and night calculations. And then it takes 12 hours. Because of where there is the equator, the time of day and the time of night is same. This is how, so that you have a solution which is valid for centuries. So it was an Egyptian civilization where the human brain, the astronomers and the mathematicians decided, okay, so this is how, I'm saying, these are the elements of civilization. Finding food, finding security, finding cloth to cover your nakedness, finding out time, how to divide so that people can work or sleep, what is the time to sleep, what you call day, what you call night. These are various bricks you build in the building. This is how it is. Okay. So, when humans decided, for instance, that okay, this particular plant is something good for eating, wheat or rice or barley, and this particular plant is very good because its fruit gives us a fabric which we can use as a cloth to cover the nakedness. When they identified out of millions of other plants that these are useful plants, others are not so useful, then they started what is called domesticating them from wilderness to bring them into human control, and therefore the large cultivation of wheat, of food, of rice, of cotton. This is how it started. That out of so many millions of plants, by over centuries, trial and error, they picked, these are the good things for us, for food, safety, security, clothing. And if they are good, now put them together. Earlier, you might find wheat plants here, 20 here, 30 over there, 200 plants there, 10,000 plants roaming around. Instead of doing that, put the plant in one place. So the cultivation near human beings started. Large scale cultivation, food grains, cotton, and then other things. Now, what was the result of that? Now, human beings did not have to be nomads. They did not have to run for food, roaming here, there, and others. Now, they identified the food plants and cultivated them in large numbers. 1 acre, 100 acres, 1,000 acres, 1 million acres. And then they started to live near that. What happened? This is how your villages, your towns, and the cities came to develop. Origin of this. When human beings domesticated, identified and domesticated the food plants and for coverings, then they started, now they have to live, because now they can cultivate that plant in large surpluses and they can live there. So this evolution of settlements in one place, 500 people, 5,000 people, 5 million people, villages, towns, and the cities started to come into existence. Now, this has started to happen about 7,000 years ago. We thought first the identification of wheat or rice and cotton was about 10 to 12,000 years ago. But to domesticate them, to bring them into large cultivation, happened about 7,000 years ago. Now, so settlements started. Smaller, few hundred, maybe more. Some grew into bigger ones, some did not grow into bigger ones. Those that grew into bigger settlements, there are 4 which are recognized as the most famous and the most civilized and the most developed civilizations. We started with how the evolution came from wilderness, from jungle, living in the same area with animals, and in the jungle. From there, how different things contributed to evolution of a civilization. And about 7,000 years ago, we find now the villages and the towns started to develop. Which means what? Which means construction, which means houses, which means supply of water, which means some kind of a management, some kind of a government, some kind of a system.
And what are those 4 major?
These are, no. So out of these, then the 4 most important and the famous civilizations are 4. One, the most ancient Mesopotamian civilization is one.
Located where?
Located in Iraq. What is today in Iraq? Between the rivers of Tigris and Euphrates, Dajla and Frat, in between. One. Second was the delta area of Nile River, the Egyptian civilization, right? In the delta area of Nile. Third, Indus Valley civilization, the delta area of Indus River, where we are living today, where Syed is today. This is one of the cradles of civilization. And the 4th was in the delta area of Yangtze River in China. So these were the 4 major civilizations, which by the time 5,000, 6,000 years ago, started to develop from smaller villages, they grow into bigger ones. And not just food and clothing, but they acquired other characteristics, which we'll talk about in the next session.
Let's take a break. Welcome back. Shah Sahab, you told us about 4 civilizations, okay? The most relevant civilization to us is Indus Valley civilizations. Now, how about you say something about Indus Valley civilization?
Good. Now, Indus Valley is one of the 4 most famous ancient civilizations. Now, Indus Valley civilization is very famous every civilization has certain features, but Indus Valley civilization is most famous because of the very high standards of town planning, urban living, drainage system, water supply system, and cleanliness and hygiene. Some very high standards of hygiene, cleanliness, town planning, urban living were observed, maintained in Indus Valley civilization. Now, which means what? Means the people who were living here, they were so educated, so knowledgeable, that they could plan the towns correctly. They could install a drainage system, underground drainage system, which even today in many cities of Pakistan do not have, till today. Storm water drains, so that if there's a heavy rainfall, the water should not stay on the roads and not damage the roads or the buildings, but it should be drained out very fast from underground drainage out into the river or out in the fields.
You told me that you personally witnessed all these
Yes,
things.
I'll tell you about it's very
It's
interesting.
7 feet diameter.
Yeah. You see, so these town planning standards were unique here. They were streets, straight line, not zigzag streets, which we find in many villages now. Straight streets cutting each other at 90 degrees. There were houses, first ground 1-story and 2-storied houses. In the houses, there were private baths, even in the first floor. There was flush system toilets over there. And private baths and flush system toilets 5,000 years ago in Mohenjo-daro. And the wastewater, and there were pipes bringing it down and then connecting it into the drains. They were baked bricks, which are still can be seen over there. And this is what I saw. All these features, these were so unique that as I was saying that when I was commissioner in Sakha, and Mohenjo-daro being in Larkana, at that time was part of the Sakha division. So we had a Director General of UNESCO. He visited, wanted to go to Mohenjo-daro. So I received him at the airport, and then we went to Mohenjo-daro. He had brought a large team, about 8 or 10 other experts from Paris, from UNESCO. And it was an amazing sight. We, of course, they saw the area above the surface. Then they moved into to see the underground drainage system. The smaller drains, which we talked about, they join into the larger drain and the largest drain, which finally takes storm water and diffuse out into the Indus River or into the fields. It was so big. It had a diameter of 7 feet, which means 84 inches. So even if there's a tall man, 6 feet or above 6 feet, he could easily walk through that. And I was walking with them, this UNESCO delegation, through that finally, because now it was dry, of course. And these Goras and other people, they were all amazed that 5,000 years ago, human beings had this knowledge of underground drainage system, and they had stormwater drainage system and engineering skills to construct and such material that 5,000 years ago they can still walk through those baked bricks that were there. At that was the time when UNESCO decided, after that visit, to list what Mohenjo-daro as a World Heritage Site in 1982, after that visit. Now, we have seen, I would also like to point out one thing. I think about 10 or 15 years ago, people would have seen heavy rainfall in Dubai and what happened over there. The water was standing on the roads and there were cars floating over the roads. Some were damaged, some were stuck up. The roads were damaged. People could not get out of their homes because there was the water standing. Women, children, others, people couldn't go to school. Why? Why was this? Because even in this such a rich, highly developed city, the town planners had not designed a proper stormwater drainage system for Dubai. They had thought,
Very unfortunate.
they had thought this is a desert area where very ordinary few inches of rain come. And accordingly, they had planned for the small little thing. They had not imagined and they had not planned. And so when heavy rainfall came, there was no system to drain it out, and the water was standing, damaging the roads, damaging the cars, damaging the houses. I think billions of dollars worth of damage must have taken place. And look at the contrast. 5,000 years ago, the people living in Mohenjo-daro had this wisdom to have stormwater drains, so that if there's a heavy rainfall, the water doesn't stay on the streets. It doesn't damage the houses. It doesn't damage the infrastructure. It's quickly drained out. And as I said, the UNESCO team, when they saw this final drain going out with 7 feet diameter, this was amazing to them. That this level of wisdom and knowledge and technical ability was available 5,000 years ago to people who were living in this area where we are living today. It's a matter of great pride. The whole world takes pride, except people here in Pakistan. And we don't promote it. I tried to promote it when I was commissioner of 2nd Division. In 1983, I organized a 3-day international seminar on Indus Valley civilization. And I invited many archaeologists, historians, other people, including some very famous like Dr. Anne-Marie Schibel, the German scholar, Dr. Ahmad Hussain Dani, Pir Husamuddin Rashidi, and many other people from all over Pakistan to tell people this is your valuable heritage. For this Mohenjo-daro and the parts of was the major city most developed in the Indus Valley civilization. So I wanted people to draw attention and that we should promote it, we should preserve it, we should develop it. Others are doing it. Egypt also has Muslim population like Pakistan, but Egyptians are developing their pyramids, the old civilization, pre-Islamic, and they take pride in it and earn billions of dollars in tourism. Iraqis do that, Iranians do this. They preserve their ancient heritage, they develop it, preserve it and promote it. In Pakistan, I was trying to do this in 82. This was Zia time and then the government got very angry with me. Why are you trying to promote this ancient heritage? Every other country takes pride in it. You see, so we are so short-sighted.
It was Zaira.
So, we are so short-sighted and our view of history is so narrow that we damage our own heritage. This thing, Mohenjo-daro, Indus Valley civilization, there's a very little, which is so far, the digging has been very small. I think maybe, small part of it has been. If the diggings had continued scientifically with good technical assistance from knowledgeable people, we would have dug deep to find much more. We don't know more. For instance, till today, we don't know what the Indus script is, what it says, because we have not, the Indus, we don't have enough number of the script specimens so that we can make a judgment. Because in Egypt and in Mesopotamian civilization, there was archaeological diggings for a long time. So a lot of material was collected. From there, the archaeologists, they can detect the language. Because here, we have closed this door and we are so blind to our heritage. Ignorant people, we seem to be rulers now. The more ignorant you are, the higher position you get in this country. That's the unfortunate thing. So we have stopped archaeological diggings. We have not been able to create more material. We need to preserve, we need to develop, we need to continue and diggings and archaeological finds so that we know more about history and take pride. And this can be a major tourist attraction like in Egypt, like in Iraq, like in other places, and can earn billions of dollars both for Sindh and for Pakistan. The purpose of our discussion is try to highlight this so that people become aware, and those in authority too, and they try to promote Mohenjo-daro as the very attractive archaeological and tourist destination for cultural purposes, for archaeological purposes, and it will also be a big source of tourist income to them. I hope they learn some lesson from it.
Thank you, Shah. Viewers, you can watch this program on every Thursday after 7 p.m. news, same night, 12 midnight after news, and then next day after 2 p.m. news. Thank you.